So before we go any further, I just thought that it would be beneficial if we review MVC architectural pattern, because it's very important concepts, not just in Symphony but in general. So yeah. Anyway, MVC is a way of organizing your content. So MVC stands for Model View Controller, actually organizing the parts of your application. So if you have part of the code that deals with displaying the data, that's generally the view, and you want to structure your code so that it does one thing at a time. In this specific case, controller is the meat of your application. It does all the logic and it retrieves the data and passes the data to the view. It also processes the request from the client, and the model is sort of abstraction upon our database. So model represents all of our data that we are interested in, and upon request from the controller, it will retrieve the data from the database and pass it to the controller. And the controller will maybe do some transformations on this data, filtering, and some further actions, sending emails, blah blah, and then it will send the data to the view, which will display all this data in a nice format to our visitor or user. So let's see how this MVC architectural pattern would relate to Symphony. Now, in Symphony we have pages, sections, data sources, and events. So pages are essentially what we would call a view. Pages also serve in this case as routes, but we can leave this for later. And essentially, when we create a page, we will get a nice file on our file system that we can modify and put HTML and output the data from the controller that was passed to the view. And model in Symphony, that would relate to sections. So essentially, everything that we have defined so far. Flowers is one model, transactions is another model, tags and queries, those are all different models of data and that are represented in the database. And controller, finally, in Symphony would be combination of these two. So data sources, they just get the data from a certain model, then they filter this data and they pass it to the view. And what we have here, events. Events are kind of a part where you do some logic where you would check the submitted form, send emails, check if the spam is coming, and so on. So these two parts essentially make a controller, and also these two parts make a model. So these data sources can kind of fit to one or the other. Okay, so that is all about MVC, and I'll see you in the next video. We will finally output some data to the page.